The Angry Chicken is a production of Amove TV. Bookmark amove.tv for more gaming and esports shows. The Angry Chicken is directly supported by listeners like you via patreon.com/TAC. And if you would like to see a live recording of The Angry Chicken, come on out to CreateCon in Orlando this July. Tickets and info over at createconvention.net.
Everyone, get in here!
Ready for action! I've got the beast in my sight.
A podcast about Hearthstone, Heroes of Warcraft. This is the Angry Chicken.
Welcome back, everyone. This is the Angry Chicken. I'm Garrett Weinzierl. Sitting here with me, well, not technically with me, but via the magic of Skype is Willie Dills Gregory, Jocelyn Moffat, and our special guest today, joining us for the very first time, Keaton. Many of you probably know him as Chalky. Welcome to the show, Chalky.
Hey, what's up?
Thanks for
We're
thanks
excited
for
to have you
joining us today.
on, man. Like, seriously, we've been wanting to have you on for a while. And I reached out to you not that long ago, and you were like, yeah, let's do it. So a lot of people have been asking us, like, to have certain people on, and you've been at the top of the list, man. So this is awesome.
Yeah, it's great to be here. I can't wait to talk about some Hearthstone.
Awesome. Well, that's pretty much what we're here to do. Although every now and then Star Wars comes up for no reason. So we'll see. We'll see how today's goes. But before we get into it real quick, I want to remind everyone that if you like this show, if you like Hearthstone, chances are you might be a Warcraft fan. Maybe you enjoyed the Warcraft movie, so you should actually check out a little bonus episode Jocelyn and I did over on the Embrace the Spoilers podcast feed, where we spoiled the living hell out of the Warcraft movie. So if you're interested in that, look up Embrace the Spoilers wherever you find your podcasts, and listen to Jocelyn, myself, and our friend Kyle, who joined us to spoil that film. So anyways, Chalky, so this is your first time on the show, so of course we have to sit here and we have to get to know you. We have to ask you some extremely obvious and some less obvious interview questions. And right off the top, what's your gaming resume, man? I mean, we all know you as a pro Hearthstone player, but was this the first professional game for you?
I definitely say it's like the first professional game. I definitely tried to mess around a little, get into the scene of League of Legends around the time I was like 16, 17. I was playing a lot of League. I got up to basically like really high Diamond 1. I never actually hit Challenger back when it was harder to get, but then Hearthstone came around, and it was my freshman year in college, and Hearthstone came out, and it was kind of like at BlizzCon, and I was watching, and like the first thing I did was I copied like Artosis's decks, because I just figured like, oh yeah, he won, like surely those are like the best decks. And I started playing around with some people, played on ladder, which at the time wasn't like very interesting because it didn't, like, there was no legend system or anything. But yeah, I got into the beta and played around, played some like really small, like 32-man tournaments. Did really well in those. And around December, I was like, there wasn't much going on. There were like some small people like trying to start up like really tiny teams. I mean, not real teams, just like groups of players that would play together. And like in January, Mana Grind became a thing, and they picked me up. So I kept playing open tournaments. I was just going to school and playing Hearthstone kind of as a fun thing to do on the weekends. And around February, we actually got an invitation to go to Germany to play the first fight night. And that was kind of where it all began. My parents were kind of like, wait, what? Like here.
It was really weird, too, at the time.
Who's paying for this?
Yeah, because who was ESGN? Like, a lot of people didn't know any of this stuff before.
Yeah. I mean, luckily, despite ESGN going down, I mean, it was all, they did pay for all the flights and everything. So I didn't really lose anything out of the deal. I still got to go and experience it. Mm-hmm. I met people like Kriparian and Artosis there. That was like Frodan's initial Hearthstone cast. So it was kind of like the beginning of everything in Hearthstone esports. It was really awesome to meet everybody there. Forsen was even on my team.
Yeah.
Before he was a huge streamer. So that was kind of the humble beginnings. And then since then, I've been kind of trudging my way through. Hearthstone has grown a lot. There's a lot more teams, a lot better of an esports scene, but it's just been a great journey over the past few years.
What is it like to trying to explain to your family exactly what it is you do? Because it's always kind of the passing joke, like, oh, pro gamers, that must be interesting at the Thanksgiving table.
Well, now it's basically like my family trying to explain it to like their friends, because my family understands it now. My parents watch like all my matches. My aunt watches them. My grandmother doesn't have internet, so she doesn't watch, but she's very interested in like how I'm doing. So they're all really into it. They all support it, and then it becomes like their friends are like, so how are your kids doing? And so they'll explain like, oh yeah, my sister just graduated college, and then their son is just traveling the world playing video games. Woohoo!
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, that's awesome. The initial trip to Germany, though, must have been super weird because you're like, yeah, I've been in my room playing those online tournaments. Well, now someone's going to fly me to Germany. I'm sure it's totally safe, but I'm going to do that there.
Yeah, it wasn't entirely new. I actually played the Pokemon card game. And, like, when I was from the age of, like, 10 to 15, I played that, and I won trips to, like, Hawaii, California. So my family was familiar with the idea of me playing games and winning trips places, but out of country was definitely a new experience.
Mm-hmm.
So you started off with Pokemon then, and I guess got introduced to Hearthstone at BlizzCon. Do you have a specific class that you kind of gravitate towards, maybe as a result of playing other card games in the past, or just something that really appealed to you as a player?
I also played World of Warcraft, and I think my first class in World of Warcraft was just a hunter.
Yes.
So,
good man.
So the first thing I really loved was hunter. There was like the old Unleash the Hounds OTK deck, if anyone remembers that. Back when I Unleashed
that was
gave all your
Chain V's deck, actually, right?
Yeah. Copied his list, kind of changed it a bit, and that was really fun to play. It wasn't even like that powerful or anything. It was just a fun deck, but Blizzard decided, it was pretty uninteractive. So
it was a combo deck. You had to actually wait until a pretty late turn to finish people off.
It had a very good match against Freeze Mage, which was like something no other deck could say because of old flair. But yeah, that was really fun. And then since then, I kind of changed to aggro hunter around ESGN time. I kept playing that, and that's kind of been my signature thing. It's kind of a lot. Aggro hunter's kind of gone these days, but that's definitely been the one class that throughout my Hearthstone career has kind of defined me. It's a shame that I couldn't get the first tournament win with that in the lineup, but.
So all right, so if hunter's the class because of World of Warcraft, was that kind of what brought you to aggro? Because you were known as an aggro player for a long time. Would you say that playing hunter first that kind of then drew you to that aggro style, or was there something else about aggro that kind of drew you to it?
I think aggressive decks in general have always been really powerful in Hearthstone, and they're certainly kind of the easiest to pick up, and then there's a lot of learning from there. But I remember in one of my first tournaments, I forget what I was playing, but I think it was actually like Curie, who I don't know if people know that guy, but he quit, I'm pretty sure, but he was playing like the first Zoo deck, and he just like beat the crap out of me with Zoo, like just 3-0'd me.
That's actually the deck that I played in that first tournament when I played against you. So
And after that, I was like, wow, that deck's really good. And so I started playing a lot of Zoo, and then I think it was Monk introduced me to like the Druid deck, and then Freeze Mage was like the third really good deck, which isn't very aggro, but at the time you also played like Giants, so it's kind of a lot more aggressive. Is like you just slam down an 8/8 and started just beating them up. It's always been a really good strategy in Hearthstone, but I do think it's kind of my preferred strategy. When I first played Pokemon, the first deck I picked up was just really aggressive, and it was actually something I kind of made myself. It wasn't really a meta deck at the time, and it was just turn 2, you just start trying to kill stuff, and that was the style I basically stuck to throughout that. And so when I got into Hearthstone, it was kind of like, this is the easiest to pick up. It's really powerful, and I like it. So that's kind of how that started.
Oh,
if it's what you're used to, yeah. But you mentioned too that there's a big, like, it's easy to pick up, but then there's a learning curve after that. What do you think is the trick to actually playing aggro optimally? Because we've talked about it on this show a lot, where people kind of crap on face hunters, or any aggro deck really and just kind of talk about, oh, that's just an easy deck to play, easy deck to pilot. But I think when you really get down to it, there's a lot more tough decisions in an aggro deck than you'll find in a control deck where it's basically, I clear the board every turn. That's what I'm always trying to do. So aggro, it's like leaving a board state up or not. There's a lot to that. So what how do you actually approach that?
Yeah, I think one of the first games that like really opened my eyes to that was I was at ESGN and I was playing against Reels, and I played Hunter. He was playing Druid, and there was a turn where I just unleashed the Hounds, and he had like 4 minions out, and he had 2/2/1s, and I cleared out both of them because it was just pretty intuitive. Like, I've got 1/1s, I'm just gonna kill his 2/1s, and at the very end of the game, I was 1 damage off.
Yeah.
And I was just like, wow, I could have pushed that 1 damage. Like, the 2/1 wasn't relevant at all. I would have been dead the next turn no matter what. And so I was just like, like, wow, that's something I could have done better. And a lot of people look at aggro games as like, oh, it's just the cards you draw, how you, play them out. Your decisions don't really matter. But I would say with aggro, a lot of important things are how you mulligan, how you kind of like sequence your damage in your early turns, deciding when to trade and not, and also just kind of identifying what your opponent's hand could be, which is something that you kind of do subconsciously, but it's also really important to notice, like, when your opponent makes a slightly suboptimal play, like what that could mean about their hand, what they could have, and how to play around that going forward.
Yeah. Yeah, see, that's a lot of things to think about, man.
Yeah.
A lot more than...
Hearthstone's kind of complex once you get down to it, but...
So we've talked a bit now about kind of Hearthstone's history, even going back to like the first time any of us heard about Zoolock, which, if I remember correctly, Dills, I think I found out about it because you were texting me, I think the week before you played in the tournament where you went up against Chalky or whatever. You're just like, dude, they're running shield bearers. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But what about current Hearthstone? What do you think about Standard and Old Gods in general?
Standard definitely kind of had to happen. I mean, it really put a refreshing take on the game. Tournaments that you see kind of nowadays where the stuff that's at the top it's sort of changing every time. Some stuff stays the same, but I think people are just now starting to figure stuff out. But the idea that basically every year we're going to get a brand new format is pretty good to know, that there's just going to be like this kind of forced change every year. You don't have to worry about, oh, what's Blizzard going to do about this card? You can just say, oh, it's only going to be around 6 more months. So, like, it helps reinforce the idea that Blizzard wanted, which is that metas should kind of naturally counter themselves, rather than Blizzard having to step in and nerf a card. So now you can rest easy knowing Undertaker will only last like a year or so, rather than them nerfing it. But the meta right now, definitely still not solved. I'm still working on that with people, trying to test out decks and all that. Some stuff definitely stayed the same. It turns out Druid is still Druid when they have Innervate. Turns out Zoo is still Zoo, even without those Death Rattle minions. And but yeah, some stuff's changing. I think people at the beginning really thought that, especially after like DreamHack and stuff, Control was going to be all the craze. But
yeah,
it's turning out that might not be so true. So we're going to have to see where things head in the future of tournaments.
Yeah, I honestly, I blame you for that assumption, because everyone's like, well, if Chalky won it with a big Control lineup, clearly that's where the game is going.
Yeah, I would say that right now there's still so much that needs to be known, but it is true that the more things change, the more things stay the same, because of the fact that, hero powers are always going to be what they are. And now we have this. Actually, that's an interesting question I would like to pose to you. Where do you stand on not ever getting rid of the classic set? Are you good with that, or do you have thoughts on something else?
I'm definitely okay with it. I mean, I feel like every card game has reprints, so they kind of have an innate classic set, but it's a little more dynamic for them because they can leave out a card if they want. So like in Pokemon, there were certain cards they would reprint like a set of trainers every few sets, but there were cards that they would just leave out. So like some cards never came back in, and that's something Hearthstone can't do right now. Like they couldn't just decide like, oh, we're just going to leave out Ice Block and Ice Block only, if that card becomes too oppressive. So that's kind of the issue with it not being as dynamic. But I definitely think that there should be a core set of cards to kind of retain the game's identity, and also have kind of like a good starting base for new players. It's also like the best investment you can make as a player. Like if you're not going to be playing all the time, and you have to buy a certain amount of packs, the classic set, knowing that it's always going to be around, is a great investment for that type of player.
That's a really good point. It would be weird if mages just didn't have Fireball one day.
Yeah.
It would be strange because of the class-based nature of the game. There are certain things, but then at the same time too, I'd like to see what Druid would look like without Innervate, for example.
It would look bad.
Yeah, it would be real
Right
bad, Garrett. Real bad.
Real bad.
With new cards added on, where
Sorry.
Team 5 is
Yes.
challenged to make Druid kind of different for a change. Yeah.
So not just Innervate 2.0 then.
No, let's just get rid of Innervate and then not adjust anything on the class. Yes, that's what I was suggesting. Yes.
Speaking of suggestions, Chalky, do you have any features in Hearthstone that you'd like to see that we haven't seen yet?
I mean, coming from my perspective, I'd really like to see some sort of like tournament mode or just in-client support. And I don't even think it needs to be very complex. I think that just some really basic, almost like a custom game mode where I can go into a match with someone and set parameters like, okay, we're both going to use 3 deck lists. You can't change anything. It's last hero standing or conquest or whatever. And the game automatically forces those rules upon you. Because right now, I've been playing a lot of open tournaments in the past month, and something that happens is, there's all these rules, and there's always, there's going to be people that break them unintentionally, intentionally, whatever. The fact that there's 18 deck slots, now there has to be a rule where, you're only allowed to use 3 decks, and if you want to make sure your opponent's not cheating, you have to personally ask them to take like a screenshot of their deck selection screen, and then you get a default win if they're cheating. But what if they're just unintentionally cheating and they didn't know the rules? And there's all these problems where it's holding back the tournament scene, but it's not a huge part of the community is an issue. And I feel like maybe Blizzard should try and integrate kind of the casual community into this idea of tournament modes. Like, what if you could just sit down with your buddy and challenge them to a best of 5 conquest? Which right now you can unofficially do that, but there's no in-game mode that says, this is something we support, this is something you can do, unlike like Tavern Brawls. And I feel like if they implemented it in the client, a lot more people would become interested in it.
Yeah,
I 100% agree.
I was going to say, I think that's kind of key, is that a lot more people would really be interested in tournaments, even if they are more casual players, if there was an easy way to either organize or enter just built into the client. And I know like deck lists, I mean, we even saw a DreamHack this past weekend. Like deck lists are a huge issue for tournament organizers, and they can cause really big problems and drama, even when there's unintentional mistakes made. So I really think that is definitely the next thing that they need to be working on.
Yeah, like I had a weird situation at the DreamHack Austin where, you were supposed to report your match after it was done, and the winner should do it. But at the end of my first match, which I had won, the girl I was playing was talking to one of the people, and I was like, "Oh, are you reporting?" And she was like, "Yeah, I'm reporting it." And then I go to like see my match for the second thing, and it says I lost. I was like, whoa, hold on a second.
Yeah.
And I go talk to the tournament organizers, and it became like a whole problem where now we got to find my opponent. We got to switch things out. Everything it was Swiss. We had to, figure out the new matchups and everything. It was a whole big problem where it would have been awesome if there was just a screen that said, hey, I win. Look, there you go. Or they could just input into Hearthstone client, we're doing a Swiss tournament. These are all the people. These are the decks. And then it's like all taken care of. So yeah, I agree. There's so many ways that even with a simple interface and a simple system, it could just get rid of so many headaches, man.
Yeah, and I would argue it bleeds into Fireside Gatherings, which in the interview we talked about that was on IGN last week, they said was a primary focus of theirs right now. And it would just make running tournaments at Firesides so much easier. I'm not biased at all because we have a very large Fireside multiple times a year, but still, it'd be really nice. It's yes, plenty of games out there. Go and have very successful tournaments, especially in paper card games. You have to kind of do it. You have to make your own rules. You have to come up with your own systems. And yes, we can, and we are doing that with Hearthstone. But because it is a video game, why not? Why not just give us that tool set and make it that much easier to have that happen? Because folks are always asking for more open tournaments with large brackets. And if this was built in, oh my God, it'd be so much easier to pull those off.
That's probably what I would do. I don't think I would even get on in ladder much. I would probably just go on and play tournaments.
That's all I do.
Ladder to me, I can only do for so long every day before I just get so tired of it.
Yeah. I don't play a lot of Magic, but whenever there's a pre-release tournament, it's like, okay, yeah, I'll go play Magic. I'll go, spend 5 hours on a weekend just binging on Magic for the first time in 2 months, and I love doing that. And you have to try a lot harder, I feel, to find that experience in Hearthstone.
Yeah.
So I'd love to see something like that. So anyway,
well, let's talk about a big tournament. That's DreamHack Austin. So you this was like your kind of breakout. Well, not really breakout. Everybody knew who you were, but you also had this bit of a stigma attached that was you didn't have the big major win, and you actually finished second quite a few times. So that's something that was always brought up every time you were in a finals. Which probably wore on you just a little bit, but talk about what it was like to actually win that tournament, and did it measure up to beating me that one time in that online MLG tournament back in the day?
Well, I'd won quite a few online tournaments back in the day.
That's what I told a lot of people, is that you actually were crushing those things.
Yeah.
You were like, I remember when I saw your name, I was like, oh man, like this guy wins all these things. But so that's the point. Is like not a lot of people know that, but yeah, Chalky's won a ton of tournaments.
Yeah, just online stuff, and I mean, I that kind of stuff didn't really have the same draw to me. Like I came back from Austin, and now I've been playing open tournaments online. I've won like 3 of those in the past 4 weeks. So, that kind of stuff. I was mostly looking for the live event win, and DreamHack Austin definitely delivered. I mean, it was pretty surreal when I won. I was. Yeah, part of your cynical mind just kind of expects the worst case. You're like, here we go again. 2-2, going up against Reno Lock. Wonder if he's going to have the perfect curve and Reno. And Reno Lock is like the most tilting deck to play against in a tournament because you just slowly realize you're going to lose. But the draws were like perfect. I just, he hellfired to kill himself on turn 5, and I was like, holy shit, I actually did it. And it was awesome. The whole event was great. I was really happy with, how my testing group came to the lineup we did and how well it performed for me. So really thankful to those guys for helping me practice. And then the whole event was awesome. The DreamHack people and admins are awesome, and it's just great experience.
What did you think of the DreamHack format? Would you like to see more tournaments follow something like that?
I definitely think now, we're like 3 or 4 DreamHacks in. Yeah, we're 4 DreamHacks into this format. And people are starting to take note that, like, wow, the top 16 of these tournaments are really good, like, really consistently. And so are the winners. Like, the 4 winners we've had in the Swiss Hearthstone tournaments are Tiddler, Celestial, Purple, me, and RDU. So just 4 known people with prior results, good players. And like if you look at the top 16, there's a mix of kind of fresh faces that are really good players and have been tryharding but aren't very known, and then also kind of the professional players that are known really well. And so I definitely think that Swiss is doing a lot. If DreamHack was single elimination, I would have gone 2-1 and dropped out of the tournament. If it was double elimination, I would have gone 4-2 and dropped out of the tournament. The fact that it was Swiss, suddenly I win the tournament. So, I mean, that's pretty anecdotal, but I definitely think Swiss really increases the consistency of results. And it also makes it so when you lose, you kind of also, you can go 6-3, which is still a good result. And people can recognize that rather than seeing, oh, he just lost. It was 2-1 and he's out single elim. So I definitely think it's a great system. I feel like a lot of the tournament organizers that don't run it just say it's for logistical reasons. Oh, they can't do Swiss. It's way too hard for them to do. And
it's tough for broadcasting for sure because
Yes.
you have to wait for matches to end, But
yeah, I mean, I had a best of 5. I got 3-0'd at DreamHack Austin, and it was against my friend with the same lineup. He 3-0'd me with Priest, and 3 games of Priest took longer than everyone else's best of 5 in the whole tournament.
Oh my god.
So the fact that Swiss basically guarantees that there's going to be some control mirror somewhere in the tournament, and that's what's going to be your time limit. That's kind of ridiculous, but at the end of the day, it's a price you have to pay. But yeah, I definitely really love the Swiss tournament. I think DreamHack does a great job broadcasting it. If you watch the broadcast, you probably wouldn't even really know it's a Swiss tournament. You just think, they're really hammering through these matches. They had like a dual system where there'd be one team playing and then like another set of people playing behind them in case they finished early. So it was really well run, and I think they're kind of proving that Swiss can be a real thing and it can be viable to broadcast, because I believe their viewer numbers for DreamHack Austin were really good.
There was a huge amount of people watching that tournament, which was good and bad for other reasons too, by the way. But
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
we've already addressed that.
Yeah, we're not going into that again.
Multiple times. But Chalky, for the average player out there who maybe just kind of getting the bug to want to go and dip their toe in tournament play, if they have the option, of different cups on the weekend, would you recommend picking maybe a Swiss format tournament over anything else?
I don't think there's many opens that run Swiss. I don't even know of any, to be honest. So,
what are the big opens that you play in right now?
I mean, I basically just, if you head on over to battle.net, they just have a list of all the ones that get points, and really I just play in whatever is like convenient time-wise. There's definitely some that are like run better than the others, but I think Strivewire definitely has like the best website for competing. It has like an automated system that does everything for you. If your opponent's late by 10 minutes, it just gives you the default win. You don't have to worry about like contacting an admin. You don't have to worry about, like, is this right or wrong to take the default win? It's like, look, your opponent's not here. Keep playing.
Oh, what is this? I see Jocelyn frantically making notes.
Oh no! Well, we use Battlefy, which I quite like as an admin. So.
Battlefy is the other big one, and I haven't really had any issues with their website either. But those are definitely the 2 websites I'd recommend. The ones I don't like are like the real third-party ones where you have to go to like some random website and you have to be in their Discord and make an account on their website to play. And I'd really like to see Blizzard not let these people run those tournaments. I played in one on Sunday, and we had to wait for about an hour because for the semifinals in the rules, it was like this guy wanted to stream our matches, and he was just not there when we were ready to play. So I don't know why that's allowed, that men could be AFK for an hour. So there's definitely some issues with kind of the real independent ones where it's one person running the tournament. I would stray away from those.
Hey.
Well, no, you do a great job.
The Angry Chicken tournaments, they're fantastic.
That's a little different. We're not giving away HCP.
Yeah, that's
right.
Oh my god,
it's a community.
I entertained that idea for literally probably 10 minutes, and then was just like, nope. I like our little community. Exactly.
Yeah, but I would just say, like, for anyone that's looking to get into tournaments, like, whether you're looking for HCT points or not, just kind of finding tournaments on Strivewire, Battlefy, wherever, and just, start playing. Like, there's really nothing to lose. There's no entry fee for any of them, so it's just your time and you get experience. I run into people that are like, will say it's their first tournament, and obviously they're like mortified to face me. But, it's really not too out of the question that like you can start playing these tournaments and figuring out what you're doing. And maybe, it starts small. Like, your first win is probably not going to be you showing up to DreamHack and winning. But that wasn't really my first win either. I played a lot online back in 2014, and that was kind of how I got my start.
Nice.
Yeah. I mean, you've really been just, pounding the pavement since Dills called me and said, "Oh man, this guy named Chalky beat me. It's the worst."
Well, I tell them that story because at the time, there was a small group of people. You knew all the other players probably, but not a lot of people outside of that scene who were actually playing in those tournaments really knew a lot of those names, and I recognized a lot of the names in that tournament. I think actually in that top 4 of that tournament, Reels was there as well.
Yep.
And like it was pretty stacked, and it was just a small little thing on like a Saturday or whatever. But you know, that was the scene. But a lot of people actually came out of that initial kind of just grinding online tournaments all the time. And Chalky's one of those people. You know, it's really cool though to see the growth, and then to see you on the DreamHack stage, like all those people watching, like we were all there live was pretty awesome, man. So, and just like, oh yeah, this guy played in all those open tournaments. Look, there he is. It can be done.
Definitely started out as like, we were just playing on the weekend for $0.00. We were playing for an interview, basically. It started out as like a passion thing, and now, what do you know? I'm getting paid for it. It's pretty great.
Nice. Well, speaking of, coming back to just being a professional gamer in general, news recently broke that you made a decision to leave Dignitas. Why did you make that decision, and what is it like now being a free agent again?
I made the decision mostly just because, I wouldn't say it's like disagreements, but it, came time to re-sign my contract, and we negotiated some things. We definitely did not see eye to eye on some things, and it was, I just felt that I could probably find a better place for myself. So I left the team, no real drama or anything behind it. So I think the community was a little disappointed.
Yeah, where's our drama?
Need popcorn.
Sorry, Reddit.
Pitchforks and nothing to use them on.
But I actually feel like right now in Hearthstone, it's, as far as like for a professional player getting a team, even for kind of like people that would say they're like semi-pros, they're playing in tournaments and they're doing pretty well, and they're qualifying for prelims, but they're not winning tournaments and they're not huge names. Even for them, I think right now is like a great time. I think it's kind of ironic because Reddit was kind of talking about after Hearthlytics disbanding and Orange leaving Archon, they were kind of talking about, is this the beginning of the end? Like, our Hearthstone team's done for? From personal experience and actually knowing things, right now people are basically getting paid more than they've ever been. The scene is still growing. Teams are still entering. And it's more about the teams finding out, how to monetize their players, how to get out what they put in. But they're putting in more than they ever have. It's a very competitive environment right now. So I feel like right now is a great time for me to, right after my win, right when I'm kind of on this hot streak, to find a team and get a better deal for myself. So that's kind of why I left. And I feel like right now, that's kind of why you're seeing like Orange left Archon. I believe it was basically a similar deal with him where he just didn't re-sign his contract. Some people took some drama from that of like Archon leaving esports. But as far as I know, Zalay and Amnesia are still fine on the team. So yeah, it's just a really time where teams are kind of flourishing right now, and I'm out there to seek a better deal, seek a better home for myself.
That's good for you, man. That's good. Also, thank you for speaking up on the health of the scene. Because I don't think the three of us on the show really see it, because we watch the tournaments. Dills and I were at DreamHack, and it's just, I don't know. Hearthstone seems like it's the best it's been. Just as a spectator, I've been really enjoying it again.
Yeah, well, I think if you notice, a lot of the like smaller players have teams now, and whether that's a team paying them, a very small salary or even no salary, at least they're sending them to events.
Right.
And that's something you couldn't say a year ago, where DreamHack was like a 32-man tournament. Now it's a 200-man, and there's plenty of people getting flown out by their sponsors, which is great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, I was talking about this on Stormcast the other night too, because there's a lot of stuff going on with Heroes of the Storm where, Cloud9 leaves or whatever. But I think what a lot of people don't understand is there's always going to be an adjustment period, because a lot of times like the scene will kind of overshoot what the game and the community can actually support. And at a certain point, like, things shake out. I don't even think Hearthstone has done that. Like, Hearthstone has not even done that. It's just that there's going to be movement and things like that. And some teams are going to not do it as well, and they're not going to survive. And that's just kind of like the nature of anything. So,
you can even make an analogy to more traditional sports. There are just teams that are more well-funded than others, teams that are more successful than the others, teams that are just run more professionally than others, and there's this ebb and flow, and teams come and go. There's always shakeups, and I don't know. Yeah. I've also used to cover StarCraft, so I'm just like, I don't know what you guys are worried about. I've seen this 3 times already.
Even when it's a dead game, it's still gonna be fine. By the way, Chalky, here's an idea for you. I think what you should do is like a LeBron-style decision special.
I was literally thinking about this. I was like, all right, we're gonna have a stream.
Yeah.
And it's just gonna be the decision.
The decision.
And I'm like, and then I was like,
talents to Archon or something.
I guess I'd have to tell the team and be like, all right, guys, don't announce this. I got this.
Yeah. That'd be amazing. Oh my god.
Boy, somebody with some video editing skills. I want a really dramatic trailer.
I just like green screen myself in the actual room he was in for the decision.
Yes, exactly.
So good.
And then the other people in the room, will Photoshop random characters from Hearthstone onto them. And it's like Reno in the front row.
It's topical. He's a champion now too. Like it all comes full circle.
Exactly. Wow, this basketball analogy is going deep.
I was gonna say, basketball just way over my head. I have no idea what you guys are talking about.
The only thing I understood was LeBron.
Hockey. Think of it as hockey. So like Gretzky, like left went to
See, there's a name I know. So, Chalky, do you have any advice in general for just aspiring competitive players, whether that be tournament or ladder? Just like where would you start now, given the way the Hearthstone scene is kind of shaken out?
I mean, ladder is definitely like the easiest way to kind of start. It's a very progress driven. Like you can easily see, you win, you go up, you lose, you go down. Top 100 is definitely like the first real stepping stone of merit, where you get on a list, you earn HCT points, you can qualify for prelims, which is now a live event. So it used to be like, oh yeah, unless you won, you're not going to see your name or face anywhere. But now that it's live, like if you go 3-0 at prelims, chances are they're probably going to show you on stream. And it basically Hearthstone's at a point now where there's a very obvious progression of if you truly want to like go pro, it's all about winning prelims, earning points, being consistent. Now there's even like the last call, so if you make top 8 of the year overall, you're guaranteed an 8-man tournament to enter BlizzCon. Open tournaments give points. They get streamed on some smaller channels. There's definitely some bigger open tournaments, though. Like Tuesday Night Hype is just tonight, run by Vicious Syndicate. They stream that. It's got a decent viewing audience. Tournaments like that to get your name out there. But I definitely think we're now at a point where if you earn the points and you're high on the standings, you're winning tournaments, your name will start to get out there. It's going to be a slow process, obviously. But I see a lot of people kind of complaining. Even just recently, people have been like on Reddit. Some people say DreamHack's not truly open. You need to earn the money to go out there. And it's like, well, that's just kind of life. You also have to buy Hearthstone cards. You have to have an internet connection.
Yeah.
Like, this is just how things work. But I think truly right now in the scene, if you get good enough and you're putting up results, you can find a sponsor or a team to send you to these events, and you can prove yourself. It's definitely a great time right now in Hearthstone to enter the competitive scene. A lot of people say like, oh, it's so hard for people to get in right now. But I just look at like the North American, European Championships. There's so many new names that the North American Championship this weekend is like purely people that people don't know of. And one of those guys is going to be a North American champion and go to BlizzCon. And that person's going to be known now. It sucks that, we're still in kind of this winning culture of Hearthstone where we're trying to tell people like, no, second place is good too. Top 4 is good too. Top 8 is good too. But ultimately, people all care about the winner. But if you just keep hammering it, I'm even a good example. Like it took me like 2.5 years to win a live event. But it's hard work. It's a lot harder than people think to just keep playing Hearthstone tournaments over and over, and also try and win them. There's a lot more that goes into that than just trying to high roll with mid-range Druid at every tournament, even though that's what it looks like sometimes. But yeah, it's a process like anything else, and if you truly want to do it, it's something you're gonna have to put a lot of hard work into.
I think that's the key there is when you said that's just life. I mean, a lot of people want just like the easy way to like, come on, man, why can't I be a top pro? It's like, well, you do realize the top pros worked really, really hard to get there. But there's a clear and defined entry point now that I don't think was there before. If you talk about a couple years ago, when most of the tournaments we were watching were independently run invite-only tournaments. And that's when a lot of people, I think, started to kind of develop this feeling of there's already established pros that were there in beta, and now there's no way for me to get in. That's all completely changed once Blizzard stepped in and said, here's how you get to BlizzCon. This is the path you take. Everything has to be open tournaments, essentially. Now it's just created a whole new slew of opportunities for everybody. So, it's basically you got to get in there. You got to prove yourself in one of those things, whether that be the ladder or tournaments. But
yeah,
I'm just really glad that we are seeing all these new names. It's amazing. What do you think about that, though, by the way, as somebody who is a little bit more established? Is it concerning? I know Firebat had talked recently about how it was harder now to just make a living as just a player in tournaments.
Well, I saw that video, and it was kind of funny. One thing he quoted was that only one person's going to make $100,000 from BlizzCon this year. Yeah. And I was like, well, that's not really the definition of viability. You don't have to make $100,000 off one win.
Yeah.
I've made more prize money in the first 5 months of this year than I have in any other year I've played. I'm up to like $21,000 in prize money already this year. So it's very profitable for me right now in terms of how it's been. I think for Firebat, obviously his first year of playing made him the most money than he's probably ever going to make again. So for him, he's on like the downward.
Yeah.
It's still very good money for him. And now he's doing the content creation and all that and casting a lot more. So he's obviously in a great spot, and he views it as, for him, he shouldn't be competing full time. But for me, I mean, it's definitely working out. And as far as the open tournaments, I personally appreciate them more than anything because even when I was one of the names in the scene, I mean, I've never been to Seat Story Cup. I've never been to Star Ladder. There are still events that don't invite me. And for whatever reason that is or was, I wasn't getting into those 16-mans and 32-mans and 8-mans all the time in 2015. So it wasn't very profitable for me. So the new open circuit thing, so far I've done very well in. I mean, I top-8'd the first prelims. I won DreamHack. It's going great. I mean, I really like playing open tournaments where everyone's on the same level because that's what I've always done anyway. So the fact that other people don't get increased opportunity really shines a light on who truly is, consistent and will do well in these equal opportunity fields.
Yeah. I think, too, it's like once you get that breakthrough performance, it opens up the other opportunities, the streaming and the other types of ways to make revenue. So
it's almost like you have to make it feels to me like it's almost like a personal decision. It's a judgment call you have to make. Do I want to go after content creation? Do I want to go after hosting and casting gigs, or do I just want to pursue professional play, or do I want to try and juggle all of those options?
Yeah.
So
yeah, and I think the most profitable is obviously if you can juggle all three, and that's what Firebat's trying to do. That's what a lot of players are trying to do now. Is I know some top tier players that are really big streamers and they do content creation. They will they aren't showing up to like DreamHack and stuff because it's not worth it for them, and so they'll play the invite only tournaments online. Kalento is kind of a name that comes to mind. Like he's even said he doesn't like traveling for the events, so he's kind of found what he likes to do and just streaming. Which you would kind of think, just kind of looking at how he was in 2014, 2015, that's not what you would have expected. He was like crushing tournaments and all that, and you would think that that'd be what he'd want to do. But for, like you said, it's a personal decision that a lot of people have. You can go in multiple directions. And I know that Firebat said the most fun to him is just playing in tournaments, but if he's not making the most profit off of that, or if it's really taxing and stressful to travel all the time and practice all the time and not get as much money as he could just sitting at his house and streaming, then, that's going to be something he has to choose between.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
I think, though, this was bound to happen, though, because it is a tough thing. If you look at, like, the professional poker scene, the people who just did like this poker circuit where they went around playing just tournaments, and that you have buy-ins too, which is completely different. But you have a 10K buy-in, and then if you don't win, then you're just dumping off hundreds of thousands of dollars throughout a year without actually bringing anything back. And so a lot of people just kind of fell off and realized I got to find other ways to make money through this game, where at least Hearthstone doesn't quite have that problem. But it is true. It's like if you're not going to be winning enough, you're going to find a tipping point where it's not going to be worth your time anymore. So it's everyone's got to do their own thing, figure it out for themselves.
Well, Chalky, thanks for hanging out. You're going to stick around for the rest of the show, but thank you for doing this interview with us. And I do want to remind our listeners to make sure to follow you on Twitter at Chalky_HS and follow your Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Chalky_HS. Now let's get into the meat and potatoes of a normal Angry Chicken show, which is Hearthstone news.
Good news, everyone!
So DreamHack Summer took place over the past weekend. There's always one of you. So for those of you who consider events results to be spoilers, run away now. Also, you're weird. Anyway, RDU won it. Took him $8,000. He got 15 HCT points. He beat Frozen. And we're getting a lot of Hearthstone firsts lately. Last week we talked about how Tice was the first player to win 2 preliminaries in the HCT. And now this makes RDU the only Hearthstone player to win 2 DreamHack events. And it was another very large open tournament, had over 191 players, or just 191 total. That's an insane amount of people playing this game. And it's funny, Chalky, that you mentioned, sorry guys, that there was no drama for me leaving my team. But DreamHack brought the drama and the scandal. Anyway, Jocelyn, you want to spearhead explaining to all the fine listeners out here what exactly went down at DreamHack?
Well, it was actually it wasn't as big a deal as Reddit and Twitter at the time kind of exploded, because basically what happened, it was a top 8 match between Maverick and Frozen, and Frozen played Van Cleef, which wasn't on his deck list, as DreamHack had published them to the players. And so Maverick called over an admin and was like, WTF, and then they just kind of went on this gigantic 45-minute break in the broadcast without telling anyone anything, and everyone was just like, oh my god, Frozen's such a huge cheater, blah blah blah, and Twitter and Reddit exploded. And then DreamHack actually ended up putting out kind of a statement press release and said nope, our bad. We actually realized this, Frozen submitted a deck list with 2 Leroys instead of a Leroy and a Van Cleef. So a deck list that wasn't even viable. So if that's what Maverick and his team were working from, that should have been a flag right away. But anyways, then they basically just said, no, that was our bad. We actually caught this a few days ago and we have an updated list, but we just published list 1.0 instead of 2.0. So yeah, that was our bad. And so they just continued the series. And so it was 2-0 in favor of Frozen. And when they picked it up again, he just won 3-0. Yeah.
Basically, so when DreamHack, when you submit the deck list, they ask you to send them a text list.
Yeah.
So, you can actually export in a text format if you're using some sort of tracker. But I'm sure not every player does that, and some players just type it out. And so he typed Leroy, and then Leroy again, and that's what they got. But yeah, obviously, if someone just looked at the list and paid attention, they would realize that's an impossible list to create. So it turned out to be no drama at all. But for a while before they actually explained it, people were freaking the hell out. It's like people just can't wait to find cheaters, man. They're just so excited when they find someone that they think cheated. Whatever. And
the thing is, you have to be really, really careful, especially on things like Twitter and Reddit, when you're calling players out for cheating. Because, in this case, even, Frozen didn't cheat. He actually had submitted his proper list to the event, and they published the wrong list. So, there was no kind of malicious intent there at all. It was just a publishing error. And, he was just getting ripped apart. And this is the kind of stuff that, that's going to be so hard for him to, move forward from, because now he's got that cheater tag. And it's just he didn't do anything, guys. Calm down.
Yeah. Unless you know all the information, probably best not to just, pipe up,
Yeah, exactly.
But how are you going to get sick up votes, Dills?
I don't know, man. You got to get that karma somewhere else with the dank memes, retweets, probably. Just the dank memes, man. That always works.
Well, Chalky, I actually want to get your take on kind of the overall meta, because you said, and when we were talking to you earlier, that you think it's just now kind of getting figured out. Did the deck lineups at DreamHack kind of reinforce that? Was there anything that kind of surprised you?
Yeah, I mean, already used Tempo Mage is obviously a talking point. That wasn't really a deck people thought was that good until kind of this last week. I mean, Hot Form got number one on North America with his own list, and then RDU made more of kind of like a mid-range list, cut a little bit of card draw, cut the Forgotten Torches, and put in more minion-centric build.
And Flame Strike.
Yeah, and 2 Flame Strikes, which was a big talking point, especially since he was like banning Zoo. So it was kind of weird, but it worked out for him really well apparently. I actually played with his list at an open tournament on Sunday and got second place in it, so
nice.
It worked well for me too. Seems like a decent enough deck. I'm not sure where it'll end up. You know, there's always kind of like a surprise factor to decks. I mean, obviously my DreamHack list, you don't see like running around ladder or anything, so it's too early to say like if that's going to be like a meta-defining deck and Tempo Mage is going to be top 3. Personally, I don't think that's where it's going to end up. I think the top 3 is probably just like some form of Druid, some form of Shaman, and probably just good old Zoo, which he did end up winning the event with anyway. He won the last 2 games on Zoo, same as me.
Turns out Zoo's still good.
Pretty good deck. But yeah, other than that, not too many surprises, honestly. Frozen's lineup was a little different. He had a weird Druid list that I actually knew of before the event, but it was like a ramp Druid with Yogg. He had
What do you think
Rogue.
about Yogg?
What do I think about
Yogg?
Yogg? You know, Yogg cost me my top 25 finish last season, so feels bad. It didn't clear my board. He was just dead to board, and it Shadow Madness my 1/3, gave his Yogg charge, Bloodlusted, Earthshocked my taunt, Frostbolted my face, and then it was exact lethal.
Wow.
So that card's it's something.
I mean, that guy just is really good at playing Yogg, clearly.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it was hot for him. So yeah, he's really good at playing Yogg.
This is unfair. Chalky, they're being Dills and John, they're being so nice to you, because when I complain about Yogg on this show, they're like, "Oh, what are you talking about? It's a really good card. It's really well designed."
It's so weird. Like, it's a fun card, sort of. And then the fact that it's like competitive viable is like starting to be a worry. People are like, "Oh,
Yeah.
what are we gonna do? Like, is it a good thing that both players in the finals have Yogg Saran in their deck?" And probably not. No.
Probably not. I don't know if Blizzard anticipated that it was going to be seeing high-level competitive play. I think when they put it out, they're like, "Yeah, look at. I mean, there's no way this card's ever going to totally work, right? We'll make it a really weak body for 10 mana, and then it does who knows what." But yeah, it turns out if you can finagle things just right and set up a situation, it often wins you games you're not supposed to win. So
It doesn't matter that it has a weak body. Half the time it ends up back in your hand after you throw it down.
usually it ends up dead, but their board is also dead. But
sometimes it just buffs itself, and it's just like a 20
Charges.
yeah,
That too.
sometimes it buffs itself and conceals itself, which is
I think that's the big issue is and like Soddle, one of the casters, wrote like a big article on Yogg and his opinions on it, and it wasn't really like a definitive opinion piece. It was more like, is this what we want? And the big issue I think people have with it is what we just said, which is you really have no freaking clue what it's gonna do, so it's hard to play around. It's impossible to play around.
no, you can't. Yeah, you just hope they don't play it.
You
Sometimes.
hope they don't have it. Yeah.
Yeah.
and so it's kind of like a joke whenever we're play testing on ladder and we're playing on Skype or something, or people are spectating. Going into 10 mana, we're like in a completely dominant position, and my friends will be like, "Oh, what if they have Yogg?" It's like,
It used to be Deathwing.
guys,
now
like,
Yogg.
what am I gonna do if he is Yogg? Like,
Yeah.
not play cards? Like,
Sit and
no,
hope.
he doesn't have Yogg. And sometimes they have Yogg.
Sometimes they have Yogg. Yeah, exactly. How do I lose? Yogg.
Yogg.
The thing is, though, I do feel like one good thing I could say about Yogg is compared to like some other randomness is, as we talked about how, you know, with Knife Juggler, one person always feels bad based on what happened with the Knife Juggle. At least sometimes I watch Yogg go off and I'm like, all right, well, at least this is kind of interesting and fun. But it is when it actually all just goes perfectly for them, or you play it and it goes terribly for you. You do have those, feels bad moments. But yeah, maybe something does need to be done, because seeing how many people were using it was like, I don't think we all expected this.
It's alarming. It is alarming.
Yeah, and it was like, oh no, we're all just watching Yogg coin flips now.
Yeah,
that might not be good.
Yeah. I was traveling most of this weekend, so I didn't get a chance to see it live. But I was looking at the deck list after the fact. I'm like, really? Oh man. So kind of scared me. But anyways, if you missed it, VODs are all over the place as usual. Gosu Gamers has all the deck lists rounded up for you guys, so go check that out. As we move on, we're actually going to come back to another IGN interview. So last week we talked about the Mike Dene, Peter Whalen interview over on IGN, and that was actually part 1 of 2. So part 2 is now up, and some more interesting stories coming out of the development of Old Gods. Specifically, both Mike Dene and Peter Whalen got to discuss cards, a lot of Cthulhu cards, mostly that didn't make the cut, that were in testing very early on in the development of Old Gods. And some of these are very, very interesting. And the thing I found the most interesting was that, I guess, extremely early on, they worked very similar to Mech Synergy. And it sounds like Cultist was at one point a keyword?
Tribe?
A tribe. A tribe, because there were all these battle cries and triggers that would happen based on how many cultists had died.
Ooh.
Yeah, and they straight up said, they came out and said that they didn't want it to be this similar to mechs, and Whalen even went as far as to call mechs and GVG kind of one note, which I was surprised.
Yeah,
how straightforward he was being.
If you go play Wild and you play against the mech mage right now, it is kind of like, sometimes I go back to Wild and I'm like, oh, Dr. Boom, look at that, that's hilarious. And then I go back and it's like, and then they drop Mech Warper, all this stuff. And I'm like, that's not that fun. You're playing Wild so you can do that again? All right.
Maybe.
But yeah, I'm kind of glad Cultist didn't turn out this way. I like the fact that, you basically put like 5 or 6 in your deck, and then and then Twin Emperors, and then you're good. And not, just a full deck of all mechs. That wasn't that cool, I didn't think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. One of the cultists they gave an example of worked like what they called a mini Cthulhu. It basically had an arcane missile effect when it came down based on how many cultists had died that game.
Was it like 1 missile per death, or was it like 3 missiles per death? Because that is crazy.
They didn't specify.
One of those is broken.
Oh,
they didn't specify. I feel like it had
didn't
to
happen. That's all we need to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it had to be 1 per death, but they didn't specify that. They just said it was an arcane missile like ability, which is, well, it's basically what Cthulhu does. So there was also
Sorry, Garrett.
No, go ahead. It's fine.
Oh, I was just gonna say, one of the things that I really found interesting about this article is when they were talking about, because I think we brought it up on the last episode about talking about what the adventures and expansions might look like this year, and if it was going to be like a year of the Old Gods. And basically, that was just totally kiboshed, because he was basically talking about designing the Cthulhu mechanic and how if they get it a little bit wrong, then no one's going to use it and they're not actually going to bring in anything else. So they had to get it like really just right when they were doing the design of that. So basically they said like, no more Cthulhu cards. This is it. Our Old Gods expansion is just that. So boo.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw that or
I'm
not.
Cool with it. I think Cthulhu is fine where he is. If they start adding more cards, things could get real scary real fast. So I'm good with it. I think the way that they work too, like there's some interesting stuff. There's some choices to be made. Like, is this Cthulhu card actually good enough or not? And there's some that are kind of like tweeners, I think. Like the 3/6 Taunter guy for 5. It's kind of a tweener, but doesn't make it into most decks. But like if you're doing like a Reno Cthulhu, he's possibly in there, that kind of stuff.
Okay. I'm going to ask the question, what is a tweener?
Oh, in-betweener. In between two things. Yeah, like in between good enough and not good enough. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
I was like...
Sorry. American terms, I guess.
I'm American. This is the first time I've ever heard anyone say tweener.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you take the full time to say in-betweener?
I
every time?
understood the connotation. I'd never heard it, but I understood what you meant.
I figured as much. I figured that's what it was, but that's literally the first. I mean, how long have you been in Texas now, Dills? Because it sounds like it's rubbing off on you.
Look, y'all need to know about tweeners. That's all.
Wonderful.
Oh, man.
Well, thank you.
Okay. Glad we straightened that out.
I'm from San Francisco, land of the tweeners. So you guys need to know this stuff.
Yeah.
That's an inside joke for San Franciscans, probably.
Moving
on.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Absolutely wonderful. Chalky, we were theorizing last week about if there was a chance that maybe both expansions and the adventure this year would still be kind of share the same theme, like not necessarily Old Gods 2, but maybe still within that world.
Well, yeah, because was it the Brazilian Hearthstone page or something that posted like the Old Gods travel guides? That's where all that came from. Is thinking that would be the next adventure.
Blizzard like shut that down.
Yeah. So, no. This was just something we thought was funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so much more like straightforward with that when they're posting this stuff. Like even a little asterisk at the end of the Facebook post to be like, "This is not the next expansion teaser." Would have been so much more helpful.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. You know, they could go that way with it, like where the world got corrupted, it's still corrupted, so like we'll see more corrupted stuff later on. If they were gonna make more Cthulhu cards, it would definitely like have to be the next expansion because of standard, or else you'd run into like the weird part where it's like, you know, Cthulhu cards exist, but Cthulhu is rotated out.
Right. It would have to all fall within 2016 because then not 2017, 2018 when Old Gods falls off. Exactly.
That would be that'd be the awkward year. But
it's like I have tentacle cultists, but I have no Cthulhu, or whatever they come out with.
I'm okay with just one set of Old Gods. I think it's better that they kind of go for a different theme each expansion, but you know, they have shown that they're willing to kind of revisit ideas before. They printed like extra mechs in the next set. So maybe like a little bit of synergy, but I guess they don't want to be as heavy-handed with it this time and be like print more cultists. The interesting thing about Cthulhu is like, and the Old Gods in general, is they kind of promote this new play style of your deck is really, really good when you draw your one of, and pretty mediocre when you don't. Because you're building around whether it's N'Zoth or Cthulhu. Yogg-Saron not so much, which is kind of why he's such a problem. You don't even have to really build around him that much. And then, of course, Yashar is just kind of on his lonesome. No one likes him.
I feel so bad for him.
Yeah.
But yeah, with the Cthulhu deck, like Cthulhu Druid's actually a viable top tier deck. And if you kind of look at the stats of when you're winning, when you draw Cthulhu, you win about 90% of the time. And when you don't, you know, it's kind of like a below average Druid deck. You're playing worse cards. And that's a design that, from a competitive point of view, I don't like much. It definitely makes you feel good when you do draw your Cthulhu, but it makes you feel bad when you don't. So it's kind of like that dilemma again, and kind of the problem of bringing in interesting legendaries when they're that powerful that it's almost like a Dr. Boom-esque thing with Cthulhu. But even worse, I'd say, because you have to dedicate deck space to bad cards to make it work.
Yeah.
It's almost like Secret Paladin, and you just draw all your secrets.
Yeah, but see, now you say Yashar gets no love, but I just recently made a wild deck with all the Old Gods in it.
What class?
It's quad gods. It's warrior, and I also play the 5th Old God, which is Reno Jackson, and I have a 67% win rate, and I think it's a big enough sample size. I went 4 and 2. That I think this deck is probably going to be
it's the next big thing.
Yeah.
Oh, that is some
It's a wild championship, which they haven't announced yet, but they will.
That is an objective group of numbers you have there. I mean, I can't argue with 4 and 2.
It's really good, man. Look,
fantastic.
you can go back. You put in Shield Maidens again. Oh, it's great.
Yeah.
Wow, where it's at, man.
You put in both Shield Maidens?
No, just one. Just one. Oh no,
It's got Reno.
No, I didn't.
Oh,
Because I don't have Cthulhu cards. Like I was like, I'm never getting
For
this Cthulhu.
shame.
I know. Yeah. It turns out when you have to make all 4 old gods kind of good, you can't make any one of them really good. All right, though.
That's
Like
wonderful.
a 4-spell Yogg is actually not so bad, actually. I found out. I was like, oh, look at that. It still did some cool stuff. All I needed was 1 flame strike. Thanks.
Well, before we move on and talk a little bit about preparing for tournaments with Chalky, we do want to talk about Twitch fighting back against viewbotting in a legal manner. So they're going after the creators of viewbot tools, basically, and they also got into discussing that hey, it's actually pretty hard, guys, to figure out who on the channel is responsible for putting the viewbots there. So that's why they're going after the creators of these tools, which I'm surprised it took this long because yes, Twitch doesn't make video games, but it's in a very similar space, and this is what you see a lot of game publishers doing. They, yes, they go after the hackers, but they also go out for the people making the hacks.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of what Blizzard did with gold farming and stuff.
Yeah.
If you go after the people who buy the product, it gets a little iffy, and also it's kind of like you're punishing the wrong people. You punish the people who are really making the money and making the whole thing happen. So I think this is the right way to go about it. I do wish it had happened sooner. And they make a good point. It's like, Reddit can pitchfork all they want and all that, and I think it's pretty obvious who is using them, but you can't like legally prove unless you've got some serious behind the scenes knowledge. So it's better to just go after the people making the tools. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. We'll see what comes of this. Either this could just be a big to-do about nothing, just to say, hey, we're doing something, or it could be a legitimate thing here. We'll have to find out.
Yeah. Well, time will tell, I guess. Time will tell. Well,
time will tell.
Let's thank our patrons before we move into strategies over at patreon.com/TAC. That is the website you can go to if you're enjoying the show enough that you really want to support it. That is the best way to do so. And on this episode, we wanted to thank Stefan F., Sherman H., Stephen M., Daniel R., AJ Gomez, Patrick F., Barbara V.E., and Topher, apparently better known as Kumdo Beast.
Kumdo Beast
is how
sure.
I'm going to choose to pronounce that one. So Thank you, Topher, and everyone else for your support. Now, let's move into this week's strategy discussion.
Hit it very hard.
Wanna blow something up? Time to pay!
So last week, we talked a little bit about, because of an email from a listener, the notion that some tournament decks are really only good for tournaments and don't necessarily always work out on ladder, and why that is, and the difference between the two, and why some do work and some don't. And then on our subreddit, our good friend the Rational Pie got on and made, oh my goodness, a very deep and well thought out post, kind of expanding upon this. And we figured, well, we have Chalky here. So Chalky, why don't we talk to you about preparing for a tournament in general and how you pick the decks that you pick and why?
Yeah. Let me just quickly explain though what this post kind of is assuming, and so he points out that there was a contest in a newspaper where they said if you everyone send in a number between 1 and 100, and we will pick the winner selected randomly from all the people whose number was 2/3 of the average number that we receive. And then if you mathematically break this down, well, then it's got to be, because the average is 50, right? So I send in 33. And then 33 is going to be the winning number. But then people start going, well, 33 is going to be the winning number. Everyone's going to send in 33. So I'm going to send in 22, because that's actually going to be the number that it ends up being. And then you can kind of go deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole. And eventually you end up with, well, I should send in 1. 1 is going to be the number, because everyone's going to keep doing this. And so that's kind of, so he compared that to what kind of happens in Hearthstone tournaments, where like the first level is, this is a good deck. I'm good at playing this deck. And then the second level is, everyone is going to be playing this deck because it's good. So I should actually just play the counter to this deck. And then you get the third level where everyone is going to be countering this deck. So I need to counter the counter to that deck, not the original first deck. And then you start to kind of get into this spin where which is actually the correct thing. And he actually brings up Chalky bringing the decks you brought to DreamHack, which actually kind of ended up countering the counter, as it were, I guess you could say. So yeah, now that all that's done, what are your thoughts when you what's the process you go through when you're bringing a set of decks? Because now there's bans and all that kind of stuff too. A lot of stuff to think about. So just take us through your process a little bit.
Yeah, so it's definitely that kind of thinking is a lot more evident in last Hero Standing than in Conquest. With Conquest, it's a lot more about having just overall very powerful decks that can't get swept.
Sure.
That's the ideal situation in Conquest. But with Last Hero Standing, it's okay to bring a deck that is bad against certain stuff, knowing that it could lose to that, because it can only lose once. And your other decks can kind of cover its weaknesses. So in general, one of my first rule of thumb things is that you should have 2 answers to every single deck that you expect to face. 2 because they can ban 1. So if your opponent has Rogue and you're bringing Priest and Paladin like I did, that beats both of them and it beats Control Warrior, so I have to ban Rogue. That's what my ban was for the tournament. But in some of my matches, I actually couldn't ban Rogue because they had an even better deck against me. So I teched a couple of my cards to kind of cover that weakness a little better, improve my percentage by 5% or whatever, and it ended up paying off in some of my matches. So for example, with Shaman, my answers were Zoo and Control Warrior, and then also Priest is decent enough. Paladin's pretty bad against Shaman, so in Last Hero Standing, maybe they'll bring in their Shaman to counter my Paladin, and I need Zoo to beat it afterwards. So that's kind of where it starts. As far as figuring out what the decks I want to bring are, I definitely do start with ladder, just to figure out what I feel like are the best overall decks, kind of get a feel for the meta. So obviously some of the best overall decks are Shaman and Zoo, and we only had about 8 days between DreamHack submission and when Old Gods came out.
Standard, yeah.
So it's kind of it's almost a different circumstance than it was testing for other matchups, or for other tournaments rather. It was more we didn't have much time. It was very let's go. We were me and Nostum were actually in a hotel room in Canada for a tournament, and he came up with a crazy idea that Priest might be good, which we were all very opposed to at first, but somehow we ended up landing on that. Priest was my weakest deck of the tournament win rate wise, but it still definitely performed its role. It came in when it needed to. Took out Control Warrior, took out Paladin. Those were 2 of its very good matchups. So what we decided for the tournament was Control Paladin was really good. We expected people to bring Control Paladin. We expected Control Paladin to do very well. So we had Priest as a hard counter to that, which worked very well. Priest didn't drop a game to it. The only things Priest dropped a game to for me were Rogue and Freeze Mage, which, it's going to happen. So, and then it got banned in series where it would have been really good, which is also fine.
So essentially, when you're doing Last Hero Standing, you're just looking at specific counters and what you expect, and that's kind of just the whole thought process.
So there's 2 kind of schools of thought. One is that you should have a bunch of decks that can just sweep your opponent. So that's you bring Rogue, Zoo, Shaman, and a Warrior deck. And that lineup did well for a couple people. There were quite a few people with that lineup. But ultimately, I feel like that lineup doesn't have the highest chance to win the tournament. You might have a good chance to go deep in the tournament, maybe make top 16. But if you want to win the entire tournament, you kind of have to also prepare for the later rounds where you're going to face people with very fine-tuned lineups.
Yeah. Well, as you get later, that you're obviously going up against the other people who thought properly about what decks to bring. Yep. So everything kind of changes.
Yeah. So maybe that lineup has a really good chance of getting through the Swiss portion, but our lineup had a really high chance of just winning the whole event. We had, I think, 4, maybe 5 people playing. We had 4 people playing the exact lineup, except it was a little different because I brought Zoo, they all brought Rogue. I didn't want to bring Rogue. I didn't feel like I had enough practice on it, and also wasn't very convinced it was the best. Turns out, in that exact tournament I was right, but maybe they were right overall. But yeah, so the other school of thought is you should have these counter decks, you should have a good holistic strategy, and then against people bringing weird stuff that you didn't counter, you just kind of hope to get lucky. For me, I still feel like I had 3 decks that could realistically 3-0. Zoo is definitely a really good deck that can 3-0. I felt like Paladin, for how much practice I'd put on it, could 3-0, and I did 3-0 like 4 people with Paladin at the tournament. So, and I 3-0'd one person with Control Warrior in the top 8. And that's another deck I feel like I could 3-0 people with. So I felt like I had 3 overall solid enough decks, and then Priest was kind of the add-on to cover my weaknesses and make sure I didn't get 3-0'd by their Paladin. So the one person I faced with Paladin, or one of the people I faced with Paladin, banned Priest, and I lost to him. So, Priest definitely did its job. It wasn't the best deck in my lineup, but it was there for a purpose. I felt like Paladin was my best at the time, which is kind of the whole point of this discussion is I thought Paladin was so good, and it was so good, but now you look at Ladder, and it's like one of the least represented decks. It's not insanely good. And I think a lot of that has to do with Druid and Hunter being discovered in the next couple weeks. I don't feel like Hunter is a top 3 deck, but it really beats Paladin.
Sure.
It beats Paladin. It beats. It basically beats my lineup. I would have had to ban mid-range Hunter had I faced it at DreamHack, but I guess that just kind of goes back to our read on the metagame. We really didn't account for Hunter at all, and in 11 rounds I faced 0 Hunters. So
yeah, I don't think I faced a single one either.
It was just the right read, I guess, for the day, for the tournament, and now things have kind of changed, and you have to kind of adapt to that. So now I'm bringing different lineups to tournaments.
It's very involved, clearly. So it's one of those things where I think experience is going to be your number one asset here. Doing this a lot of different times, you're going to start to notice. I remember one of the original people who kind of gave some information on this whole process was Firebat when he put out that spreadsheet that he had used. I think it was for BlizzCon actually, wasn't it? Where he said, these decks are good against these decks, these decks are good against these decks, and he kind of went through the entire thing and picked. But that was, of course, also Conquest, which was slightly different. So
it was pretty funny because his conclusion was just to bring like midrange Druid, Miracle Rogue, Hunter, and
these
Shaman, or Zoo rather. And people were like, "So you went through all this trouble and you got to the exact decks like that are just good." Yeah. But I mean, sometimes that's where you end up. For prelims last in spring season, I went with Secret Paladin, Aggro Shaman, Aggro Druid, and the last deck was just Zoo, I think I didn't name off. Yeah. So it was a pretty basic lineup, but sometimes that's what's just the best. And for DreamHack, obviously, we made a read, and it happened to be right. Like you said, experience plays a big factor because obviously looking at every event I've been to, I haven't nailed it precisely every time. Mm-hmm. At one event, I brought like Freeze Mage, and it was a group stage event, and 2 people in my group had Kazan Mystics. So sometimes I still made it out of groups, funny enough. But sometimes you're wrong, sometimes you're right. And obviously, at the end of the day, there were 2 matchups in the top 16 where I considered myself unfavored. I had to ban. They both had Malagos Reno Freeze, and I had to ban that because that deck just destroyed. Because they banned my warrior, and then I have Priest, Paladin, Zoo, and Malagos Freeze Mage crushes all 3 of those. So I had to ban that deck. And that left Rogue up. So I don't know. Some people might have seen the Ragnaros 50-50 I hit against Frozen.
Yeah, the auctioneer that was concealed, pretty big deal.
Yeah, I had to catch a couple lucky breaks to win some unfavorable matchups. But at the end of the day, that's what's kind of required if you're going to win the entire event. And everything kind of lined up that day in that event.
Nice. Yeah, actually, it's funny because people talk about you being an aggro player, but I remember the tournament where you brought all fatigue decks and actually did pretty well in that tournament as well. So, there's always a different answer, I think, every time. And I think that's the real skill of Hearthstone right now because, a lot of people talk about the skill cap having been reached by quite a few players. I'm not 100% sure that's correct, but that is something that people think. But I think one of the biggest skills that is going to separate the best players from everyone else is what your decks you bring and how you tech them out, right? So, which is I think that's great. That's a skill that should be important to being a top Hearthstone player. Yeah,
when people say the skill cap's reached, I think a lot of them are like first of all, they're looking at like individual games and individual matches. And occasionally you're literally going to have a best of 5 where there's like nothing better you could have done. Sometimes you just steamroll your opponent 3-0 and you're like, well, there's nothing he could have done. And that's going to happen. But I also think there's a lot of skill in the preparation phase. There's a lot of skill, and there's still a lot of skill in the playing phase, even in some of the lesser skilled matchups that people will say things about. But I felt like there were a lot of matches at DreamHack Austin where, you know, you can go back and look and be like, huh, wow, well, Chalky played this really well and his opponent made misplays.
Yeah.
And a lot of the skill is not making misplays yourself and leaving the door open for them to make those misplays.
Sure.
In a Warrior Mirror, my opponent had a full hand of cards and he played a Sylvanas, and I think the correct play there was to just pass from his position and overdraw a card, because when you play Sylvanas, not only do you lose your Sylvanas, you give your opponent an Acolyte, and so you just win, which is what happened.
Yeah.
So he definitely screwed up in that spot, whereas in that same match, I had a full hand of cards with no good play, and I just passed, and I overdrew. I forget what I overdrew. I think it was like a Doomsayer. It was just an awful card, and I was like, well, got rewarded.
Yeah.
So there's
That's true. It's small plays like that are just, they eke out like a percentage advantage over the opponent, which over time adds up to winning more often than losing.
I found that Warrior Mirror so interesting for that very reason. And I was checking our Twitter, and there were a lot of tweets to the Angry Chicken podcast that were like, "Oh man, armor pass, how boring!" I'm like, guys, this is like intense chess. I'm really having a good time with this.
Yeah.
And
you have to
you
get
can
the
tell
most out of every resource, you know?
Right.
And if you don't, you lose.
Yeah, you can tell that even the casters were even kind of having a good time with it, and I think they were calling it well. They were like, well, you can just tell by the way Chalky's playing that he's been in this scenario more times.
Yeah, and it's funny how experience plays into that, because last year I was playing the WCA qualifier, and I was playing against Jason Zhao, who plays a lot of Control Warrior. I was playing Control Warrior. We played a mirror, and I think my deck was better suited for it, and I lost. And I probably just played terribly. And Muzzy, one of the guys I practiced with, was like telling me how terribly I played, and like telling me you shouldn't be bringing Control Warrior to like these matches if you're not good at the mirror. And so like me getting my ass kicked ended up a year later letting me, be insanely good at the mirror, because I learned from experience, wow, I'm really bad at this.
Yeah, like I better
need to practice this.
Yeah.
Yeah, time to buckle down and learn it.
Yep.
So well, great. Well, thanks for sharing kind of your thought process for how you prepare for tournaments. So hopefully the Rational Pie and everyone else who was interested in this discussion last week, I hope you all learned something today. So
there's a lot of information packed into that right there. So I encourage everyone, pay attention. That was awesome. Thanks, man.
Absolutely. Well, let's round this out with an email, and then we'll call it a day.
Hello.
Hello, it's me.
Hello.
Just quickly, do you get my message?
Yep.
Oh.
Hello, brother.
You can send your emails to tacpodcast@gmail.com. Go for it, Jocelyn.
Oh, I was like, I put it in green, but it doesn't have to be mine. Our first and only email actually comes from TAC Reddit from Alex Coon, I guess.
Okay.
It says, with the arrival of Standard, I feel like the game is at a fairly balanced point, and the skill cap for reaching Legend has risen. I usually roam around the rank 8 to 14, and I notice that I meet a decent amount of players with the Legend card back. Speaking to my friends, some of them went to Legend back in 2014 or 15, and many of them with good old decks like Undertaker Hunter, Tunnel Shaman, or Secret Uther. Yet they haven't made it since, for various reasons. And while getting Legend is no easy feat, I've never been there myself, I think it's much cooler if the Legend card back would change with the theme of the year. This would incentivize more players to try hard for Legend and would be a cool reward for those who have already been there and can do it again. Wouldn't it be cool if there was a themed Legend card back each year, starting with a legendary Kraken in addition to the normal Legend card back? I think that's an awesome idea. But I also thought they were going to change the Legend card back with Wild and Standard, and they didn't do that either. So
I like the idea. I mean, more stuff to earn. It is true, like, I got Legend, and then I haven't really found a reason to make a serious push other than if I'm having a good time. I basically, like, now I'm playing because it's fun to stream these decks, But like the season going for Legend, it was like mid-range Druid and Zoo, and I don't want to do those anymore. I don't want to just do the best deck. I want to play quad old gods, So, but if there was a new season and a new card back for a new year, I think that would definitely incentivize it again. So yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing this at all.
I'd like to see that. I'm always down for more stuff. I'd like to see more card backs. I mean, we talk about this with my Fireside group a lot. It's, how can Blizzard help incentivize folks to show up to more gatherings and stuff like this? You see it in traditional card games all the time. You can go to your Magic pre-release and get a card that is exactly the same as the card everyone else has, but it's got a little stamp on it with a date on it, and everyone wants that. And I'd like to see that in Hearthstone. It doesn't need to be like some crazy legendary. I don't need a Yogg-Saron with a stamped date on it. Give me Possess Villager or something. And something anyone can easily get. I just find that kind of stuff very fun in a card environment. I mean, Chalky, you brought up Pokemon. I still have my, I think it was like E3 98 Pikachu from the original run of the game somewhere sitting in my closet.
Now, another thing that's in this email that I'm curious to know what you guys think is, do you think it's harder to get Legend now in Standard? Has the ladder been treating you worse than
absolutely.
before?
I have absolutely had a harder time ranking up than I feel I have in years past. God, Hearthstone's actually been out at a point where I can say years past. But, what do you?
I don't know. I think it's been pretty much the same. I've had about the same amount of, I guess, success on the ladder as I did pre-standard. I will definitely say that I've seen, and obviously as we get more and more seasons, more and more people reach Legend, I've seen a whole lot more Legend card backs. And actually that's kind of why I enjoyed this post, is because I was like, oh yeah, that means they did it like maybe every season, but maybe they did it once. Because I know I'm one of those people that just lets it get into my head and I'm like, oh, I'm playing a Legend player. Oh, I'm just going to lose. So
well,
I need.
Yeah, that's the thing. They just pushed one time with an OP deck. And then, it's fine.
It's actually funny. Whenever I see anyone with the Legend card back, I kind of have this stigma that they got it once, and they're so proud to have it
they're
on.
so proud they have to use it.
It's kind of like the diamond border from League of Legends. I could always tell if you use your diamond icon, that means you're Diamond 5 because you're proud to have it. If you're Diamond 1, you're ashamed you didn't get Challenger. and so, like, whenever anyone has the Legend card back on, I'm like, ooh, he's happy he got it that one time.
Yep.
But, of course, it is, for a lot of people, a huge accomplishment. So some people just like to kind of show that off. But, yeah, I definitely think more rewards are they can never really be a bad thing. It's mostly a matter of Blizzard putting the resources towards making it. And card backs are kind of something where I know to a lot of people it's becoming less of a huge reward because you can only use one, like you got to stick with one. So getting your 37th card back doesn't really have as much appeal as like if say they were to like Garrett said, add something to a card, like, a stamp or whatever on your Possessed Villager. And if it was just like a one of thing where maybe it incentivized you to play a certain deck because, your random card for reaching Legend that month that's like has like a platinum border is Possessed Villager. So I'm gonna play Zoo this month to show it off. Something like that could just be a cool little thing that they could do. Yeah, but I know that making golden cards takes like an entire team, and it's like something they put a lot of work into. So it's a lot more difficult for them to make these kind of rewards, and so they really have to pick and choose when they want to and what they want to do with it.
It would be cool, though. They could take the same animation that they use on gold cards and just change the outside border color. I'd be okay with that.
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people would be like a lot of people that have full golden collections or spend a lot on goldens. They're like, give me something more, Blizzard. Take more of my money.
No comment.
Yeah, I really enjoy that aspect in other card games because when I was really young, when I was into Pokemon, I didn't even play it. I just collected it, and I just wanted to find the weirdest, most obscure version of cards that I could. Half my cards were Japanese. I couldn't even read them. So,
I think though, if you start offering stuff like this, there's a little bit of trickiness to it where you want to give people a chance to get it who maybe don't. Because there's a lot of people who are never going to reach Legend, and they don't, for very good reasons. They have families and jobs and whatever, and I play in the morning with my coffee, and that's what I do. But
Yeah,
I think there's
fine.
a lot of stuff like you mentioned, Garrett, like participating in events is always, I think, a really good way to reward players and get them to log in during a specific time. So when a new expansion or a new adventure comes out, similar to what they did where all of a sudden the cards were in arena before they were in the game. If you play arena during that time period, you get this special card for that thing. I would love stuff like that. And like I
they
said,
did it.
more rewards is good. Always.
They did it once for the first BlizzCon where Hearthstone was playable. They gave us a golden ETC.
Right.
And I
Which is
remember,
dope.
which
I
is
love
dope.
it.
And you can't craft it. You can craft the non-golden version, but I think that's really cool. And I remember at the time there's a ton of backlash. But I'm in Chalky's camp. That's life. I don't have every.
You don't need a golden ETC.
Yeah, exactly. I don't have every Magic promo I would like to have because I can't go to every Magic event. But that's fine. I can go get a normal version of it if I need it to play. ETC's not even that good, so everyone should have calmed down in the first place.
I really love, the limited edition stuff, and I love it staying limited edition because as a player that played League and they had 3 years of limited edition skins, they made the decision to re-release all of them. And there was basically, that was kind of like a cash out move on their part. And people that were collectors, and they refunded everyone their money. So if you bought any limited edition, you got your money back. But they don't want their $10 back.
Yeah.
They want their
to be special again.
They want their 2012
That is
skin
simple. Yeah.
to be a 2012 skin to say, look, I played during these months when you didn't. And this is my reward for that. And this is a sweet skin that only like 0.1% of the community has. And that's the cool part. And we don't even get to show off the golden ETC. We don't even play it really. But
I can go visit it.
Hey, you don't, but I.
It's a fun thing to have, and that's the kind of stuff that I feel like it's awesome. And I really hope Blizzard, sticks to their guns on that. And going back to kind of the reward system, they are kind of with Overwatch, I noticed doing they're doing like a golden weapons thing for competitive play, and it's starting out as the players that do really well and reach the legend status of Overwatch are going to be able to get them really fast. But if you're not as good, you'll still be able to accumulate the currency to buy them. It's just going to take longer, and you won't have it for like every hero, I would assume. You'll get to pick it for like your favorite one. But like that kind of stuff I think is great, and that's the direction they should go kind of in Hearthstone, is if you're hitting legend and you're doing really well, you'll get it at a faster rate, which is what they're doing with the new boxes. But the boxes aren't like new stuff, it's the same old stuff that you can get anywhere.
And it caps out at 5, I believe. But for an average player, that's still, I think, quite the accomplishment.
Yeah.
No, it is true. I think, you got to like temper it with, let people be special, but let people who want it find a way to get it. If it's something you really care about, but you can't do it this way, here's another way to do it, and that's okay too. But then it is true. Like once it's there, I want it to still be a special thing. Because there's, and same thing with like World of Warcraft. When you have a mount that's hard to get, it only lasted for a little while, and you mount up on that thing in Orgrimmar, it's awesome. And you want people to be like, ooh and ahhing, and if you take away that, then suddenly like all that stuff loses its specialness. So.
You mean like the fact that I can go solo the Lich King now and get my sweet-ass Frostworm mount that everyone tried super hard to do back in 2009?
Still got to do it over and over again, though.
Yeah.
That is true. That's fair enough.
Yeah. I've finally been back into WoW just because the movie got me all pumped, and that's been the thing I've been doing is go back to ICC, man.
I love running old raids, man. I love running old raids in WoW. It's a good time. So
it takes like 10 minutes now, too. You just blow through everything.
Just get to go see the sights. Get to go, slash dance with Arthas. It's great.
Say, what's up, Lich King? Stand on the stairs and blow him up.
It's great. It's great. Well, that's going to do it for this episode. Chalky, really cannot thank you enough for being so generous with your time. And just one more time, give you the chance to promote yourself. Where can folks find you when you're not guesting on shows like this?
Yeah, you can find my average Twitter over at Chalky_HS, and my very rare stream that probably happens like once a month over at twitch.tv/Chalky_HS again. And go ahead and like follow me. I'll probably have a team announcement coming in the next few weeks. And I'll be playing in tournaments and all that good stuff. So hope to see you guys there.
New Jersey coming soon for Mr. Chalky. So, well, wonderful. Well, thanks again to our patrons over at patreon.com/TAC for supporting the podcast. We really do appreciate it, guys. Also, thanks to those of you who are leaving us reviews in the iTunes store, because that actually helps a lot on iTunes, helps us find new listeners. Thank you to M. Becker73, Carrie Carpenter, Gilgamesh iPro, and Dr. Deadpool. Oh, those last two ones are really tying for winning the name game this week. But Dr. Deadpool says, I love the show, and I really just want Garrett to say Dr. Deadpool. Well, you win. You win, sir. Congratulations.
Said it like 3 times already. Look at that.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So check out more about this podcast and many more over at amove.tv or on our YouTube channel over at youtube.com/amovetv. Big thanks to our Patreon producers, Declan H., Peter Williams, and King Louie. You can get our swag and other merchandise over at bit.ly/amovestore. And follow us on Twitter at TAC Podcast. We may be back Thursday if it's a new Brawl to talk Brawl. If not, we'll see you next Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern right here on twitch.tv/AmoveTV for the next live show. And don't forget about CreateCon, folks. It's coming up next month, July 30th. Jocelyn's going to be in Florida. Dills is going to be in Florida. Well, I already live in Florida, so that's cool, but I'm not there right now, so I'll be back, and we're doing a live Angry Chicken and a bunch of other gaming podcasts in front of a live audience. Get your ticket. Come on out. It's going to be a good time. So, Dills, where can folks find you?
You can check out my Twitter is at Willie Dills. The stream is twitch.tv/WillieDillsSF. The other shows I do, The Instance and Stormcast. And I had a lot of people request this video, so I did just put out a video on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/WillieDillsSF, about my streaming and podcast setup. So if you were ever wondering what the equipment I use is and how I make my crappy voice sound decent, that is the video for you. You can find all that information there. It's been getting good feedback so far. So if that's something you're interested, if you're trying to stream or podcast, go check it out.
I have been meaning to do that just for the sole convenience of having something to link to when I get asked that at least 3 times a week. So.
You should really do it because you have a specific situation that I think a lot of people are curious about too, where you're trying to actually produce the show from, I'm just like, hey, I'm just talking in this mic. That's all I do. But you got, a lot of different things going on.
Which is really nice, by the way, because I produce so many darn shows. When I show up to just talking like Patrick's show, I'm like, wow, this is nice. I don't have to worry about recording, and I don't have to worry about Skype screwing up on me. If it happens, it's Patrick's problem. Woo!
But I've been discovering, because I've been helping some other people get shows produced, and I'm discovering, how little information is out there. So they're trying to do all these things, and they're making it harder on themselves than they have to be. And I'm like, guys, you could be done with the show and post it right away. All you gotta do. Follow these simple steps. But they don't know the steps because it's not posted somewhere.
Yep, exactly. Anyway, Jocelyn, where can folks find you?
Right here on AMove TV every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern for the Gamers In. You can also follow me on Twitter and Twitch at Joss Plays.
And Embrace the Spoilers is really cool too, guys.
Oh, right.
You should go check that out because Jocelyn and I are spoiling Game of Thrones and the Warcraft movie. So go check out Embrace the Spoilers. You can follow me on Twitter at Garrett Art. And everything else is over at amove.tv, including Embrace the Spoilers. So check that out. That's going to do it for this episode. Thanks again to our guest, Chalky. Follow me on Twitter at Chalky_HS. And until next time, guys, job's done.
Job's done.
Job's done.
Yes!
Job's done.
Oh, there it is. Woo!